Hey everyone. I'm sitting outside today, you probably noticed, and it's a little toasty and hopefully not too loud. If the sound sucks, let me know, please, so that I can do something about it. Hi. All right, so I'm going to give it a second just to let those who want to join. And I have notes about what I want to cover today at a high level, and I'm going to kind of let it flow outward from there. If you have any suggestions, questions, hey, thanks. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. All right. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about today was the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think the best way I can contribute is really the experience that I've had in bridging the unfortunate gap of understanding. And I think that's where I can best equip helpers to help. And so I'm going to talk mostly to it from that angle. I'll also share what my thoughts and feelings are about why this is so important and what I see as possible. I'll also talk about this somewhat uniquely in that my model of the world negates evil for evil's sake. Hey, Richard. In that I find that most wrong actions are a function of fear or pain or misperception. And so a lot of the solutions and ideas that I'll offer will be from a more perhaps neutral standpoint than others would be. And it's not ever in any way denying the awfulness of behavior. I'm only presenting that position because to me it's more effective in helping someone cross the line from misperception to unity. So that's sort of a layout of what I'd like to cover today. If there's anything that you definitely want to get covered, please put it in the comments. And for God's sakes, I get really excited when people are here, I know. And so if you have a comment that's clever, just DM me so that I don't lose my shit. Okay, so I think the first thing to consider is when I'm having one-to-one conversations with people and they say something like all lives matter, I think there are some ways that you can help them understand that the language in Black Lives Matter does not deny that. Rather, it's providing a perspective that hasn't been heard entirely. And to me, that is the opportunity where we are acknowledging as a system, as a body of people, the water that we swim in. And I don't know how many of you have personally suffered from any kind of oppression or abuse, but I personally have been mentally, emotionally, and sexually abused. And there is a way that people can create context and culture that is silencing. And I think what's being asked right now is to acknowledge that that's present. And when I was having a dialogue with someone in my DMs just before this, and they had responded to what I posted, that all lives matter. And so following the IGTV guidance I gave last time, if you want to check it out, it's posted, rather than jump at him and say, yo, you fucking wrong, this is why you fucking wrong, what I said was, can you tell me more about what you mean? Can you help me understand where you're coming from? And when you create space for someone to come forward, it's much easier for them to see the holes in their own argument. Whereas if you come at them in a way that makes them defensive, you sort of lose that connection and that possibility to share information and bring somebody something that they probably want to have and hear is impinged. So I think the most important thing is to really understand that when people cry out in pain, it's because they're in pain. Hey, Herbert. This is so critical. Hey, Hannah, in all human relations, understanding that you cannot understand unless a person has experienced cancer or loss of an individual up close or oppression or you don't fucking know. And that, I think, is unsettling for most, because you cannot assert your intelligence or your it's like your identity becomes at stake. So some of the blocks I've identified in these discussions are relative to identity and safety in the world. If a person feels like their worth is relative to someone or something else, then they can be rather fragile. And so if someone's, let's say, like going back to someone's crying out in pain, if someone's immediate reaction is, yes, but those other people are in pain, it's like, okay, but what is that? How is that? Where does that come from? And it could be lack of confidence in self to change the situation. It could be a level of guilt or shame. It could be fear around if the status quo changed, if the system, if the world as I know it changed, what would become of me? All of those things could be sort of inciting this like gut check, like this response that's without thought, without consideration. Because again, if someone is yelling, hey, I'm hurting, hey, help me, in general, a person who is in a safe place can approach that and ask for greater understanding. So I think it's really helpful to understand, or at least consider, that the people on the other side of the conversation are not there. I want to say they're not there because they chose it, although it may seem that way. We are all functions of a system, and there are nested systems. We've got our world, our country, our school, our family, our siblings, and within each of those, norms exist without them saying, hey, here are our norms, welcome to our group. And those norms saturate an individual in such a way that they believe them to be reality. And this is primarily the work I do with clients around, hey, that belief that you've been holding about who you are or how the world works, it's not real. And similarly, these beliefs that are passed down, or ideas or opinions, it's not like someone was going through a buffet and was like, ooh, that one looks good, I'll take that. It's just sort of like put on their plate. And then because everybody else has it on their plate, they're like, oh, this should be on my plate because it's on their plate, so that must be right. This must be what I'm supposed to have. It's hard to make that. Oh, I have to remember to read these out loud, because when the IG posts, it's not there. It's hard to make people understand the situation or how others feel, because a lot of Americans have their own agenda rather than ignore it or put it down. Right. So but what I'm basically saying is, it's not, to me, a lot of the resistance is subconscious in nature, in that an individual unknowingly perceives that their worth or their stability or their safety would be at risk by accepting new information. And this isn't exclusive to the Black Lives Matter movement. They're probably doing it in other areas in their life. In fact, we all are in different areas. Wherever we don't feel confident or safe, we're usually blocking out information that we don't know how to handle. So all of the tools and everything that I'm providing in this conversation are really around how to get information to people. And really, by information, I mean a broader perspective to people who probably would like to have it, but are currently blocked through their own subconscious resistance and fear. If you're joining, what I'm talking about today are just some thoughts I've had on how to bridge the gap of understanding between those who are in support of the Black Lives Matter movement and those who are misunderstanding what kind of call to action it is. And I've talked a little bit about the fear response that could be driving those who are resistant to integrating that information or adapting to it. And the next step would be, okay, so if you identify that that's something possible for them, you can check out my other IG Live I posted about the Black Lives Matter movement last week, and it gives you some ideas on how to create a safe space for conversation over time. So I'm not going to go over that again because it's redundant. But I'd say if you can recognize whenever you meet resistance with resistance and see if you can find your own safety and surety and zoom out a little so that you feel safe to impart that information over time and really lead through your own understanding of truth and love and light and inspire those who are fearful by acknowledging your own limitations, by taking ownership of your own imperfections. It is so, like, one of the best fucking things you can ever do is show somebody your own humility and humanity by saying, oh fuck, I fucked up, and and here's what I could have done better, and this is what I would like to do next time. And I recognize that it might take some time and some practice, but I acknowledge. And that gives other people, so when we go back to this idea of protecting our identity or our safety, it is terrifying to most people to acknowledge that they're wrong. Because if they're wrong about something like that, then maybe they're wrong about other things. And if they're wrong about other things, then, oh fuck, I don't understand who I am or how things are happening and what am I going to do? So it really, there's so much opportunity in the word safety. And if this is something that you are really passionate about assisting with, see if you can hold that in your body and take a longer term approach, knowing that or believing that it's possible that the people on the other side of the conversation would like to better understand, but right now they're just blocked through their own fear. It does not, I'm not saying ever is it okay to impinge on somebody else's experience or their freedom. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if you can help them find forgiveness for self of themselves by offering it to them, saying, I think that it sounds like that you're not sure what to think here, or it sounds like you're afraid about this because of that. Is that right? And give them an opportunity to find safety so that they can consider new information. Other things that I've heard, the thing is, not a lot of people really care or never stop to think on how to better yourself or learn how things should be handled. Most kind of roll with life and get hit until you understand what's right or wrong. You know, it's interesting that I think that it seems like if you have had like your ass kicked a few times, you have a greater understanding of the human condition. If things have been easy, again, there's sort of like this bubble that feels important to protect. And it's because, in my opinion, there isn't confidence that exists on how to handle it if the bubble was popped. So a lot of people who are narcissistic or bullies or like all talk, no show, it's not because they think they're better than others. It's because deeply they are afraid that they're nothing. This is why I don't think change will happen unless it's forced. I'm not sure about that. Rick, I'm going to hold on yours for a little so I can keep my pace. But yeah, the new generation is more understanding, I think. So another thing that I think is helpful, so when I was talking about oppression and abuse earlier, unless you have felt what it's like to be disproportionately punished for something that you've done and the way that fear can be used to shape behavior, it's really challenging to fathom. There are some things like you don't know till you know, and like you know because you've been in it. But if you have never been in an abusive dynamic where to even you can't even like get it, because it seems like people would say like, oh, if it didn't feel good, or if I was this, I do that. No, not if somebody has power over you or you perceive them to have power over you, and it hold people in hold people down. And if you haven't been in an abusive situation, like hats off. Or not hats off, like that's amazing, and hopefully what you've learned through that you can teach other people like what's possible when you feel safe, what's possible. you know so one of the other things that I think are helpful to remember is one of the comments I've heard is like, oh, it's over, like slavery's been over, things have been over, like get over it. Individual, like how scarring that is. Most people have had heartbreak somewhere in their lives, and they probably can notice that it's changed how they interact with like later relationships. But can you imagine the this feels some type of way, like try to hear them and really see if you can. And so I'm talking about this from the standpoint of if you're having conversations with people who are misunderstanding the messaging and the opportunity that's present, see if you can like help them really and just like how much healing and time and nurturance it takes to overcome something like that. Thanks for that, Rick. I'm not sure. Is anybody else having difficulty with the video? Okay. So if you're just joining, what I was talking about today was the Black Lives Matter movement in the context of conversations with people who might be hesitant to hear the what I perceive to be the opportunity and like the truth here, and that's that there is oppression. There is an opportunity for us to embrace the difficulties that Black people have had and listen to ideas about what would make our society more comfortable and supportive of where they are and where they like to go. And I talked about the fear response. That's probably of people on the other side of the conversation, and I talked about it being a form of most likely fear around their worth or their identity or their safety or consistency in the world, or the consistency of the stability that they perceive to be in the world. Note about having this conversation was how to talk to what you want. And I don't know the answer to this. And honestly, I steer pretty clear of the media because I'm sensitive to, it's not because I'm sensitive, it's because honestly, I think like the media is bullshit. So I haven't been taking in information there, and therefore, I don't know necessarily if there have been prominent speakers on what a proposed solution would be, or the path to, or where would be desirable to go. But I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind is we are acknowledging a problem, which is huge. Step one, acknowledge. Step two is heal, to me, which is not forward movement. It's staying there and saying, tell me what hurts, tell me about what happened, and it's connecting at a human level until that's healed. And people can be as progress oriented as they want, but healing is a very important step to forward motion, as far as I can tell, at an individual level, and I can't imagine why it would be different at a collective. And then after that, it's okay, so what would be better? Where can we take this? What's next? And at a micro level, that's helpful in the conversations to consider, because if you know that what they're saying needs to change, and you're like, but this is a distraction from the solution. This is a problem. The solution is the information. And so it's not about your personality. It's not about their personality. It's about it's about this message of unity and love and fairness. And so rather than focus on making this person the enemy, keep trying to like talk to where okay, so it's here. It's not you're wrong. This is right. It's a very small distinction, but it makes a big difference. So rather than saying like, don't do that, you're saying do this instead. Whenever I coach a lot of relationships, and often someone is like, oh, I hate when they do this. They don't do this. Okay, I'm like, well, what do you want them to do? And often they don't know. And often the relationship is just like this far from success if only they could articulate and felt comfortable sharing, hey, this is what I want. And so in your conversations with people who are resistant around this information, stay connected to the outcome that's really at like, what's the outcome here? What do you really want to drive? And to me, what I see the opportunity is understanding, greater understanding and compassion. So if you can, try to keep the thing and rather than damming or fighting. Keep driving towards where you want to go. And so I was saying, at a macro level, I'm not sure what the solution would be to create, to change the water. Maybe the conversation is enough. Maybe having all of this on the table is enough. I'm not sure. But I think that's something that Black leaders probably have ideas on, and I should probably do some research, because I'm not personally sure. Specificity that may be lost in generalities. So it's almost, this is what I want. This is what I want, and knowing where, if not this, then that. But again, that's step 3. Step 1 is acknowledging the problem. Step 2 is facilitating healing and allowing for patience and understanding. Maybe try this. I'm saying, this has worked for me. This has worked for people that I work with. I'm not sure if that's the right solution here, but perhaps, experiment and let me know. I talked about